So anything you say here should be picking up. So.
So then we will try to be.
Yeah, we're still going to test some stuff out,
Okay,
but you should be good.
Hi, Boca. How are you? Thank you for coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
It wasn't a long walk, right?
No. This is good. This is good.
We do. So, yeah.
Trying to get in my step.
I was just about to say. Yeah.
I'm surprised he doesn't have a motorcade with him.
No, you don't want that.
I thought I was going to see like little names on the flag of different countries, but
No, they actually, each one has a different iteration of the message. I am here, we are here, we belong.
and is this something there?
I am actually a resident of Immigrants. So
Because
he asked me to say I tried to avoid it. Like every other politician.
to raise the funds. Well, I guess we could, but we have to
Eventually I will.
Look at me jumping ahead.
yeah, it was a lot of work. Yeah, it was a lot of work.
You're like, maybe one that no.
Wait.
You know. I still think we're so fast. Watching the forecast, God bless the States, right? Right, sure. Yeah, I get it. I totally think, right, I eat I totally get it. I do the same.
Thank you.
I would have over together, but
No. I'm not that good.
How are you?
Yeah, but I get it, but I guess the rest.
I did. I was so grateful to get that run in. I just felt at peace. Okay.
I saw you outside of Green Top. I don't remember. You were having a.
and I'm not going to be
I'm that vibe is so powerful. You walk right by. I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh my God.
I remember She did her best to like in the first couple of classes.
Archana,
I can't believe we're in the same building and we're
fantastic.
Just right here is fine. Thank you. Sounds good. Thank you.
I'm so nice to meet you.
I am good, yeah. How are you doing?
Validated.
We do. We have another Alexander Hamilton star.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bullet.
First, I don't want to take too much time, but I think right in front of you.
Right here? about an hour. Yeah, we'll be here until 1.
I got the gloves.
Yeah.
That's why I brought this. I was like, I was gonna have my hat.
Starting with music is a lovely touch to have the music.
It's a nice touch.
I want to get a picture with you, my friend. Yes, for personal.
I just stuck this in here.
Sure.
I'm going to use it.
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, no, that thing. Okay, those are your comments, yes. Picture? Do you want me to do it?
Do you want all of us?
Oh, he's going to do it. Okay.
This is my personal stash. Yes.
Got it closer?
Yeah.
There you go, like this. Do you want the icy thing in the front?
What you think? Yeah.
A lot of lighting, so it's,
Go higher.
yeah.
Go higher. No. You avoid the light by going higher. Raise your phone up. Hold it up higher. Raise your, yes.
I
Thank you so much. I'm sure it's perfect. How's her girl doing with college and everything? She's doing good. She's done with college. Wait a minute. She graduated. She's working at Governor Pritzker's office. The public policy. She got the demonstration.
Just be.
That's right. That's right. Because I did hear her name.
So that they
we
don't
do staffing like
throw it
once
away.
bi-weekly. Oh, that's right. Oh, so she's No, that's fine.
Yeah. That's fine. You know, people will be able to hear us.
She told me after she's with the lieutenant governor and governor, she asked around and then it came to her. She wanted to know more about public policy.
But hopefully,
Maybe we can announce. Maybe we can announce that. She's right doing the briefings here.
yeah, Archana will get us started.
How are you doing? How's your daughter? It's just so surreal that you have little young women, right? And so she's also doing, I don't think she can do this, but she's allowed. Good for her. Yes, she's working really hard. And so it's been good so far. It's been scary. It's like freshman year for my baby, but she's doing well. I think that my daughter is sophomore. See, and that's what I'm wondering. Is that going to happen? Because right now she's at because it's still kind of exploring and trying to get to know things. But sophomore year is hard. We'll save her. Keep us
Either side.
My students showed up on time at 8:30 and they're done. Like 45 minutes. Just show up at 8:30 in the morning. They're all
effort. I love it. Like 16 really. Oh, thank you. It's so hard. No, it's hard to tell with the mask. And plus, you know, you just need to speak to people. Sorry, I've been hanging out back here. Yes, thank you.
People are talking, so how do we hold our attention?
And they're using Wi-Fi access dedicated to
Or to just gather around.
It is November.
So Katy will get us started with the first lady.
In October, we can have
Okay, get started.
like August.
Close by. It's not my fault.
Gather around. Thank you.
Should we stay here or gather around?
Yes, either way. Since you're going to be speaking, stay close to the podium.
Why don't you build the podium? Turn the podium.
No, because we want everybody to do
Oh, they're not going to be there though.
Are you ready? Okay. Okay. Thank you for being here today. We are asked to start with a land acknowledgement statement. Illinois State University was built on the land of multiple Native nations.
the microphone.
Okay. These lands were the traditional birthright of indigenous people who were forcibly removed and have faced centuries of struggle for survival and identity in the wake of dispossession and displacement. We would like to acknowledge that our campus sits on the lands that were once home to the Illini, Peoria, Miami, and later due to colonial encroachment and displacement to the Fox, Potawatomi, Sauk, Shawnee, Winnebago, Iowa, Muscatine, Piankashaw, Wea, and Kickapoo nations. And I know there may be some people who are standing further back, and since it is really important to be able to know these names, I'm just going to briefly hold them up and say them again. So the Illini, the Peoria, the Miami, the Fox, Potawatomi, Sauk, Shawnee, Winnebago, Iowa, Mescutin, Yankashaw, Weya, and the Kickapoo. And I also express honor to any Indigenous people that we may have excluded in this acknowledgement due to erasure and historical inaccuracy. These Native nations, prior to their forced removal, were caretakers of this land, and they continue to carry the stories of these nations and their people, just as the people continue to carry the stories of this land. And as a member of a public colonial settler institution, I acknowledge my responsibility not only to understand this history, but also to actively confront the ways in which colonial policies and thinking continue in my personal and professional life. At the Center for Civic Engagement specifically, we recognize some of the ways that engagement and education endeavors have been complicit and even instrumental in misrepresenting Indigenous people and in marginalizing Indigenous people and their cultures. And I am committed to creating change and progress, and I ask you to join us on this journey. I respectfully request that we all begin to learn on whose land we live, and I would encourage you to continue to attend events such as the Native American Film Series to learn more. And I also want to give a labor acknowledgement statement. We must acknowledge the history of violence and white supremacy in this country and recognize that this country would not exist if it weren't for the free and enslaved labor of Black people. We honor the legacy of the African diaspora and Black life, knowledge, skills, and commit ourselves to supporting anti-racism and equity. And again, I encourage you to continue to attend events like this, and thank you for all of the organizers. Thank you.
Thank you, Katy. I'm Archana Shekara. I teach graphic design at the Winston Kim School of Art. I'm also the creative director of Design Streak Studio. So hello, everyone, and namaste. Thank you so much for your attendance and recognizing National Immigrants Day. Thanks to President Kinzy, Provost Tarhule, Dr. Houston, Dr. Strzepek, Dean Zosky, Dean Miller, our community leaders, speakers, Camille Taylor from the Not in Our Town, Dr. Julia Emig from McLean County Museum of History, and Charlotte Alvarez from the Immigration Project, Dr. Pereira and my colleagues from the School of Music, Anne, Katherine, Rachel, Mark, and Andy, and our ASL interpreter, Callie Herbiger. Thank you for accepting this invite. Thanks to all the sponsors, Dr. Maura, Toro-Morn, and I could not have done it without you all. I'm grateful that we are able to install 1,000 flags in the quad today. They are a symbolic statement showcasing that we are human, we are home, and we are community. The art installation aims to bring together voices from our campus and community to create a welcoming, accepting, and respectful space for immigrants. Immigrants are oftentimes made to feel invisible and have been a target of hatred and racism in the country's history, and this xenophobia has escalated in the past few years. They are seen as aliens or foreigners. A foreign particle is rejected by several systems, including our human body. How do we eliminate the word alien or foreign and begin to see immigrants as people? How can we change our behaviors to accept people not as a disease, but as humans? How can we build a country, communities, and systems with equity and kindness? The installation of handheld flags is a symbol of hope and acceptance as you become a naturalized citizen, and during the oath ceremony, you are given a handheld flag of the United States. And suddenly, you're made to feel special and visible. This paradoxical statement needs deeper reflection. The design of these flags calls for unity and the recognition of human dignity. I'm grateful to all my students, colleagues, and community members for standing beside me. I'm moved and inspired. I only wish we had voice amplification. I thank Dr. Houston for contacting the IT director so this event can be shared and heard on social media. Maura, my dear friend, we both are immigrants and we stand alongside other immigrants who may not have a voice, but we do. Thanks for the collaboration, and I feel full. This community is our home, and we are home, and we belong. Thank you. Happy early Deepavali, or Festival of Lights. May the ray of light bring togetherness, love, and peace. Namaste.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Maura Toro-Morn. I am the director of the Latin American and Latino Studies program. We were supposed to hold this event last week, but weather conditions threatened the very foundation of the event. And so we gather here today, a day that must be noted for its significance for several reasons. Today is a sacred day in Mexico and significant parts of Latin America. It is the day to remember those that departed, the Day of the Dead. Indeed, many immigrants have died in our soil. Yesterday, while taking a walk to enjoy the colors of the season, I was introduced to the Celtic cross that was erected in Funk's Grove. That cross marks the site where a mass grave of Irish immigrants was found. The inscription of the cross stated that they arrived sick, penniless, and took on hard and dangerous jobs. On this Day of the Dead, we remember the Irish immigrants that came here with and without papers. We also remember the many immigrants that have died crossing the US-Mexico border, crossing the Atlantic, crossing the Mediterranean Sea, the Pacific Sea, to name a few crossings. Allow me to say something about the genesis of this art exhibit. Cross-disciplinary collaborations are a cherished principle of our institution. And what you see here today is an exemplar of that principle. Archana is a faculty member in the College of Woonsum Kim College of Art and director of the Ethnic Studies program. And I myself am a faculty and member in the Department of Sociology, directing also the Latin American and Latino Studies program. Indeed, the genesis of this program lies in the curricular and programmatic collaborations of these two programs. What you see here today as an art installation is the culmination of 16 years of friendships and conversations that have taken place in the quad, in meetings, and through our travels. What you see here today is the culmination of disciplinary conversations that took us to Mexico, to Peru, to Chicago, to explore the intersections of identity, history, immigration, and art. Dear Archana, I will never forget sitting in the ruins of Machu Picchu with the tape recorder running and engaging in the most amazing conversation about how to incorporate what we have learned in our teaching and research. Over the years, we always come back to the central questions of what it means to be an immigrant, a migrant, a refugee, what it means to be an immigrant scholar. In other words, what you see here today is the culmination of conversations about immigration that thread through our classes, connect to both of our research agendas and speaks to the community that we both, the work that we do as community, as academics and members of this community. What you see here today represents the invisible labor that takes to sustain ourselves as immigrants in the university and in the community. We have shared this journey as two scholars, guided by the value of collaboration, scholarship, and service that is the mission and vision of this university. The university's mission, as is most recently being articulated, is to educate, elevate, and connect. And we take those values to heart. And thus today, with this art exhibit, we seek to educate, we seek to connect, to elevate and connect. We want to educate you about the value and invisible work that immigrants do in our community, in our economy, in our state, and the nation. We want to roll back the years of immigrant hating and affirm that we are here, we belong, and we are community. We want to elevate the work that immigrants, migrants, and refugees do to sustain themselves, their families, and their communities across borders and oceans. Today, we want to offer you a moment for you to connect to the reality that immigrants, in all of the complicated ways that we migrate with and without papers, alone and with our families, pushed by forces outside our control, pushed by the sheer dream of seeking a better life, have been the force of innovation in literature, in art, in music, and science. Today, we may not have microphones, but we amplify the voices of immigrants in our communities so that you could hear us loud and clear. We are here, we belong, we are your future. I want to close by thanking my dear friend and collaborator, Archana Shekara, for allowing me to be part of this exhibit and for taking our cross-disciplinary collaboration to the next level. I can't wait to get started on our next project.
Can we give them another round of applause for all their hard work, please? So my thanks to both of you for leading this project and bringing us all here today. And I'm pleased to be part of the belated celebration of Immigrants Day. We can't control the weather, but what we can do is still gather and really be so grateful for the work that's been done for this project. The work of the students that were a part of this, from the Design Streak and Latin American and Latino Studies, that were here bright and early this morning, putting this installation in for all of us to enjoy. So we often hear the phrase that we are a nation of immigrants, and many of us have stories. And it makes it sound like it's long ago in history, but it's not. This is, the contributions of immigrants continue every single day. Every day someone else is joining our great country. And those contributions, intellectual, cultural, physical, are continuously shaping who we are as a country. And they lay the path for our future. So when we honor immigrants today, we honor the building of the future of our country and of our institution. It's also important that as we mark the beginning of Native American Heritage Month, that we have the ability to reflect on our past and our future, because our past does not define our future. There are many opportunities moving forward. And we have to be really aware of how our actions can affect others and their culture. And so again, this opportunity, again, reminds us of the important role we play. So today we celebrate artistry, we celebrate innovation, we celebrate talent of our students and our team who put this project together. And we all want to be here to share our respect for all the contributions that immigrants have made for all of us standing here today, for our institution and for our country. Thank you.
So thank you to everyone. I would also like to thank the organizers of this event and to say that I'm really delighted to be here The only thing I'll say is maybe begin with a little bit of a secret, maybe an embarrassing one, but one I'd like to share. I think whoever invited me to speak at an event of an art sculpture didn't know me when I was a student. I wasn't a bad student, actually. I think by all indicators, I was pretty decent, except when it came to art. Music, art, anything related to art. I remember one particular course I took as a first-year student. It was called Appreciation of Landscape Elements. We were supposed to go out and draw, freehand drawing. I used to routinely score Z minus in that course. Not just zero, but Z minus. That's something I don't know about very well. So when I realized I was going to speak at this event, I thought, okay, since you don't know much about art, you should do a little bit of research. So I went on the internet to look at what the role that art plays in our society. And I found a description that was so precise, so articulate, so apt, that I decided to copy 2 paragraphs of it. So I'm going to read it out here in detail. And I quote, so this is a quotation, please don't attribute it to me. Art influences society by changing opinions, instilling values, and translating experiences across space and time. Research has shown that art affects the fundamental sense of self. Painting, sculpture, music, literature, and the other arts are often considered to be the repository of a society's collective memory. Art preserves what fact-based historical records cannot. That is, it helps us to feel how things exist in a particular place and at a particular time. It continues, in this sense, art is communication. It allows people from different cultures and different times to communicate with each other via images, sounds, and stories. Art is often a vehicle for social change. It can give voice to the politically or socially disenfranchised. A song, film, or novel can rouse emotions in those who encounter it, inspiring them to rally for change. End of quote. I loved that very much, and I said, how can you beat that? And as I reflected on that quote, I was impressed by just how profound the description is. Consider some of the most memorable works of art throughout history. The great paintings like the Pieta or the Sistine Chapel by Michelangelo, the Mona Lisa, which we all know, by Da Vinci, the Ecstasy of St. Teresa by Bernini. These works allow us to transcend time. They convey a glimpse of the author's feelings and may even express what often words cannot do. Closer to home and more contemporaneously, we get the same feelings when we look at great works of art like Mount Rushmore, Lady Liberty, or the work of painting like Annie Burns' Sugar Shacks. What's the point of reciting these historical works of art? We are here before a work of art, even if it doesn't rise to the same scale as the ones that I've cited before. And so I think it is highly appropriate that we should be standing here to celebrate another piece of work as a medium of communicating our feelings about the immigrant experience in America. In a way, it is a bit unfortunate that the immigrant experience needs to be communicated at all. Because as we all know, this country, America, is a country of immigrants, built by immigrants, and for many centuries, sustained by immigrants. There are very few Americans who do not trace their origin or their ancestry from somewhere else. So make no mistake, America is still a land of immigrants. This country embraces and gives more to immigrants than any other country in the world. Examples of this openness are too many to recount here. It allowed an immigrant to become the governor of the largest and economically most powerful state in the nation. It allowed an immigrant free rein to create the largest and most valuable car company in the world, making himself the richest man in the world in that process. It allowed the son of an immigrant to become president, and so on and so on. These immigrants are not just takers, they are builders. If you use Google, you have an immigrant to thank for that. If you ever wear a Levi jeans, you have an immigrant to thank for that. If you ate Chobani yogurt this morning or plan to do so this afternoon, you have an immigrant to thank for that. And someday, if we find the cure for AIDS or go to Mars, it may most likely be due to the work of immigrants. Today, across our lands, immigrant doctors, immigrant health professionals are at the forefront of fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. I stand before you, a proud immigrant, grateful for the opportunities that I myself have received here in America. I have shared my story freely and with great pride in a number of venues. Not many countries in the world today will create the opportunities for the son of illiterate African peasant farmers to become provost. Sadly, however, we cannot always take these freedoms and opportunities for granted. We cannot be sure that America will welcome future generations of immigrants and give them the same opportunities that previous generations of immigrants have enjoyed. The reason is that over time, some immigrants, merely by virtue of their having arrived first, would like to pull up the drawbridge and lock everyone else out. Sometimes, later arrivals, by virtue of political or economic power, or even for nothing more than the accident of their birth, look at even those who have been here longer as less deserving. Worse, we have made the people we met here strangers, outcast, and dispossessed in their own land. And therefore, reminders such as this event today are necessary. They are necessary to remind all of us the value of immigrants. They are necessary to remind us of what we owe to immigrants. And they are reminders to all of us that the opportunities we enjoy should never be taken for granted. So I thank the organizers of this event for the foresight and courage and leadership in creating this art exhibition, the universal language of communication to convey this critically important and timely message. I greet those who are immigrants, no matter how long they have resided in this country. I remind us all that we are all immigrants and that we should make room for other immigrants. Thank you so much for this celebration, and I wish all of us a great Immigrants National Day recognition. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost Tarhule. My name is Doris Houston, Interim Assistant to the President for Diversity and Inclusion. And I'd like to once again acknowledge the work and dedication of Professors Archana Shekara and Dr. Maura Toro-Morn. Their vision has brought us together today in honor of and in recognition of National Immigrants Day, past, present, and future. When we think of it, every day is Immigrants Day, because immigrants make up the fabric of who we are as a nation. According to the National Immigrants Council, 1 in 7 U.S. residents is an immigrant. Immigrants make up the fabric of who we are. 1 in 8 residents is a native-born U.S. citizen with at least one immigrant parent. Immigrants make up the fabric of who we are. 42% of all immigrants have a college degree or have attended college. Along with me, immigrants make up the fabric of who we are. Immigrant-led households across the United States contributed a total of $330.7 billion in federal taxes and $161.7 billion in combined state and local taxes. Immigrants make up the fabric of who we are. In the U.S., residents of immigrant-led households held $1.3 trillion in collective spending power after taxable income. Immigrants make up the fabric of who we are. And 3.2 million immigrant business owners accounted for 22% of all self-employed U.S. residents and generated $86.3 billion in business income. Immigrants make up the fabric of who we are. Today, we uplift your voices, our voices. We acknowledge the contributions and recognize that immigration is essential to the health, wealth, vibrance, creativity, and intellectual life of this country and of our state and of our university. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm Diane Zosky, the Interim Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, and I join with all of my colleagues here to say welcome to this National Immigrants Day of celebration. When I thought about what would I want to say today to address this auspicious event, and I thought, well, a typical salutation of welcome is appropriate. And then I thought a bit about that word welcome. And then I thought a bit about how perfectly profound and precious that word welcome is. It's just 7 letters, 2 syllables, but a word that means the world to hear. For many people, that word, it's more than just figuratively, it's literally means the world to hear. It means the world where one's hopes and dreams can be realized. It means a world where your fullest potential can be actualized. Welcome is the invitation to join in that universal desire to have a life better for our children than we had for ourselves. So on this day of celebration for immigrants, for some of you here, this word welcome still rings in your ears. For some of you, it's an invitation to your 4 generations. For some of us, it's a long ago ancestral yearning that brought us here together in this space and in this moment. And I'm struck by how the individual stories that brought us here are woven into a beautiful shared tapestry that all began with that gesture of welcome. So as we gather together to celebrate this event, I'm going to ask that you each reflect on each individual flag in this installation as a beautiful story of each individual, of each person that responded to that invitation of welcome, pursued their dreams, and thereby we're all enriched for that. Thank you for being here today.
Good afternoon. I'm Camille Taylor, and if I sound like I'm yelling, I am. I am the co-chair of Not in Our Town and the co-chair of Not in Our Schools, along with Mary Applington. If you would raise your hand, Mary. The Not in Our Town organization has been in this community for at least 25 years. Our mission is to stop hate, address bullying, and to create safe, inclusive communities for all. Over the years, we've had marches, rallies, demonstrations to fight against racism, the mistreatment of immigrants. We've organized open houses at the Hindu temple and at the mosque, the Muslim mosques, to dispel myths and stereotypes, to educate people, and to break down, hopefully, racism. Most recently, we've been engaging in restorative justice practices of listening circles for a variety of topics. We've had a post-election one after the murder of George Floyd. We most recently had an AAPI listening circle just last week that was part of this whole celebration. And I wanted to show you a sign. We've had yard signs in the community. Many of you have seen these. This is the window-sized version, plug. It says, no matter where you are, we're glad you're our neighbor, and then it has in different languages. And most recently, we have another sign, if you want peace, work for justice. And Mary is the guru on our sign project, has worked tirelessly on that. Our Not in Our School group is represented in Unit 5, District 87, and at U-High. We're at the high schools, the middle schools, and some elementary schools. They work on various projects at their school addressing concerns specific to their school. Most recently, Normal West is working to train and educate their educators on LGBTQ issues. We have trainings to increase dialogue and open communication at Normal Community. District 87, they're having, our students will be presenting to their faculty to discuss how they can access and increase and diversify their curriculum. So our students are very active. Even over the summer, they attended school board meetings to address changes or propose changes in the curriculum and to fight against community members who would not have them learn our real history. So our students are very active. The theme of this art installation is to honoring Immigrants Day is I am, and depending on how you read it, artists have a special way of doing things. So when you look at that sign, you can read I am here, or we are here, we belong, in different ways. But Dr. Krista Platt, the director of the Multicultural Center, I realized that their mission is very much in alignment with what you are doing here. And I wore her t-shirt, which has anti-racism, identity, and belonging. Quickly defined, anti-racism is a range of ideas and political action intended to counter racial prejudice, systemic racism, and oppression. Identity is the fact of being, or characteristics that determine who you are. Belonging is a sense of fitting in or feeling like you are an important part of a group. So with that in mind, I saw the quote that you had in promoting this event. The goal is to bring voices together and to create a welcoming, accepting, respectful space for immigrants, for all students, and that goes with the Multicultural Center. If you've ever seen advertisements for Ancestry.com, you'll notice how they really take you back and share stories. I love stories. Raise your hand if anyone in your family, as far back as you know, immigrated to either this country or another country. Raise your hand. All right. Whether involuntarily or voluntarily. So think for a moment. These are rhetorical questions, but I want you to think for a moment. Of course, I have to ask you something because I'm a retired educator. If you had to leave the U.S. by the end of the week, where would you go? Why do you have to go? And why did you pick the country that you chose to move to? Think about that for 4 seconds. People pick the United States for many reasons to come to. Many of them believe that the democracy that we have in the U.S. is something that will give them and their families a better life. That's why they come here. And I'm sure other countries that they may choose to immigrate to, same reason. So my mother, who is still alive, is 95. And my two sisters and I decided this year to honor her in a special way. We worked with Amanda Highland from Development and Dr. Platt to have the lactation room at the Multicultural Center named the Alma V. Samuels Family Room. And our family and friends did a fundraiser to purchase 95 books for her 95 years. One of the books that's in the bookcase, the lactation room is a beautiful space. If you ever go over there, check it out. It has a baby changing table, a sink, rocking chair, a bookcase. Prominently on the top of the bookcase, you will see a book named Alma and how she got her name. And Jordan Boberg, who is the president of the Pride organization, found that book, thank goodness, because that story is what I'm going to use today to highlight and celebrate immigrants. It's by Juana Martina Neal. So the book celebrates the legacy of family, immigrants, belonging, and identity, and a great message that's written for children, but it impacts adults as well. So it starts off where the girl says her name. Alma Sofia Esperanza Jose Porta Candela. She says this name, she's about this tall. She says to her father, that name is too long. Dad, it doesn't fit. And he says to her, come here, Alma, I will show you why your name is so special. Sophia was your grandmother. She loved flowers and books. Alma said, I love flowers and books. I am Sophia. Esperanza was her great-grandmother. She never traveled anywhere outside of her home, but she always wanted to. And her sons did. And so Alma said, Dad, I would like to travel with you. I am Esperanza. Jose, was her grandfather. And every day he walked through the village and got to know the people, and he liked to draw. And he loved his people. Alma said, I like to draw, and I love my family. I am Jose. Porta was her great aunt. She gave Alma a red bracelet as a baby to keep to have the spirits of her ancestors protect her. Alma said, I am Porta. And Candela was her other grandmother. She fought for social justice and for people to be treated correctly. She made speeches and marches. And Alma said, I am Candela. But then she said, Dad, how did I get Alma? He said, oh, but Alma is a name just special for you. And one day, you will have a story to tell of your own. And what he wanted her to understand is that everyone has a story. And everyone should be able to belong to the bigger group and be able to share their story and be respected for their story. So I thought that book was very fitting to fit in with today. I hope you do too, and let's celebrate Immigrants Day.
Camille always tells the best stories.
First, I just want to thank Archana and Maura for organizing this very important event. Thank you. I am Dr. Julie Emig, and I'm the Executive Director of the McLean County Museum of History, and I'm going to speak briefly on that connection between story and history. An officer of the American Association for State and Local History recently wrote that at this time in our nation's history, we are collectively focused on the stories that we tell, who gets to tell them and who gets to hear them. Whose stories are already familiar? Whose have been left out? How can we explore the multiple perspectives present at any moment in time? How can we illuminate the process of doing history? History is a verb. And make clear the choices that are inevitably made when interpreting the past. In the spirit of illuminating the process of doing history, the Museum of History has launched an immigration series entitled Breaking Bread in McLean County, a 10-part series that will wrap up with episode 10 this month. We have been working in partnership with Be in Welcoming, a coalition of the Immigration Project, Not in Our Town, Not in Our Schools, the West Bloomington Revitalization Project, the Mennonite Church of Normal, and the First United Methodist Church. Additionally, we are grateful to be partnering with Design Streak Studio at Illinois State University and Heartland Community College. I would be remiss if I did not give a special shout out to Hannah Johnson, the museum's Director of Youth and Family Education, who has done much of the heavy lifting in organizing this series. When I joined the conversation with these community groups about organizing a series on the topic of immigration in McLean County, I reflected on the push and pull of the immigrant experience. What pushes people to leave their homes, right, Camille? And what pulls them into new and often very strange lands? What kinds of relationships are forged in these new spaces, and what tensions arise? We have been exploring these and other questions in the context of food. Hence, breaking bread as a metaphor of a common staple we share across cultures, while also recognizing an important and distinct variation. I highly recommend the video of the Coos brothers making sausage together. The Breaking Bread series is on Zoom and free of charge. The previous 9 programs are fully accessible on the museum's YouTube channel, plug, linked on our website, www.mchistory.org, underneath our Learn tab. In this series, you will find stories of the Kickapoo, Irish and upland Southerners, Germans, Swedes, African and Black Americans, Mexicans and Central Americans, Japanese, South Asian Indians, and Congolese, emphasizing shared elements including food, family, tradition, trauma, and exchange. Our final installment of Breaking Bread will be Sunday Sauce, an Italian staple, which is scheduled to air on Zoom Saturday, November 20th at 4 p.m. Again, you just have to register. It's all available. Breaking Bread incorporates a multitude of voices, stories that from this community, stories that speak to the migrant experiences of these varied cultural groups, relying on scholarship, expertise, firsthand accounts, and really good recipes. Together, we are actively doing history by highlighting stories from the local immigrant community. And thanks to all of the contributors for your collective inspiration. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Charlotte Alvarez. I'm the director of the Immigration Project. And before I speak, I am cold. I'm sure you are cold. So I want you guys to all think of your best dance move, okay? We are going to collectively do one great dance. If you do not have a dance move, you can borrow my very, very limited salsa, okay? You go step backwards and then step forwards. But everyone's got to do something, okay? 1, 2, 3, let's move. Got some music on in your head? Okay, good. If you also want to move closer to your fellow mankind, you are able to do that. So I love what we're talking about here today. We're talking about immigrants as complex people and humanity and how we are all connected, right? We are all immigrants. Immigrants are everywhere in our society. I'm a policy wonk. I'm an attorney. I'm looking at immigration policy all the time. And kind of my angle I want to talk about is what does it truly mean if we radically just think about immigrants as people, as human beings, and we really embody the idea that all humans are created equal. How does that change how we talk about and we implement policy? And how does it change how we have debates about immigration issues? All y'all are here because you have some connection to immigrants, you love immigration, you probably are the one talking to your friends about immigrants and immigration policy. So how do you have those conversations? And how do we do it in a way that really respects everyone's full humanity? So I just want to challenge some myths and maybe challenge our response to them as well. So we often talk about immigrants as economic actors, right? People who are against immigrants say immigrants are taking jobs or they're not paying their full share of taxes. And our response is often, well, actually, immigrants contribute more taxes than they're able to receive in public benefits, that they're influencing and stimulating the economy. We talk about essential workers, especially now, about how essential the immigrant workforce is. And we sometimes say immigrants are doing the jobs that no one else wants to do. Let's look at that from a radical equality perspective. If there's a job that no one wants to do, if I don't want to do it, I don't want my tia doing it either. We all need to have jobs and think of ways to have jobs with a living wage, with respect and dignity. Immigrants aren't just economic actors. They're full-fledged people. And if they're contributing to the economy, great. And if they're not, maybe they're contributing to their home and their families and communities in other ways. Think about who gets left out and how we're talking about immigrants as pieces of people instead of full-fledged human beings deserving of the same respect and dignity as everyone else. I want to tell you a story. We recently had a caller. We do immigration, legal services, and social services in our communities. And we had a call from a gentleman who had COVID. And he had COVID, and the first thing he asked us was how he can afford to pay the bills for his family when he's on the verge of being admitted to the hospital. If we only look at someone as an economic actor and human being, as an essential worker, we look at those people as disposable instead of members of communities and families that are fully affected and often bearing the brunt of our economic policies. We also talk about immigrants as either good or bad immigrants. We talk about the deserving immigrants, right? People who have achieved their American dream and been able to get to places like ISU and achieve the educational ideals. That's not true of everyone. One, it's not everyone's dream to go into higher education. But also, if we talk about just people who are excelling and achieving, then we're not talking about how the systems we create often create barriers and boundaries that force people to not excel or to get in the way of their full potential. Immigrants face unique challenges. For example, often I know several people who have advanced degrees in other countries, but then they cannot get reaccredited or get that same career in the United States because our system is designed to benefit native-born populations and not recognize the great achievements and the wonderful educations of people in other countries. In the Immigration Project, we have an anesthesiologist answering our phones because he can't get the right accreditation to be able to achieve that job here in the United States. We need to look at ways we can accept and welcome immigrants and help people achieve their dreams instead of getting in the way. We also talk about crime rates, right? If anyone heard someone against immigration say immigrants contribute to higher crime rates or they're a danger to our communities, you might respond with, well, statistically, immigrants have lower rates of crime than native-born populations. They're less likely to be a danger to our communities. But also, aren't immigrants who have criminal records also deserving? I have a former client who has a DUI, right? She was also going through a period of severe domestic violence and trauma and had a spouse who was in the removal proceedings. There's complex stories and actions, and if we treat people as pieces of people and not reflect full humanity, we lose the picture, and we minimize and we distance. Immigrants aren't the other, they are ourselves, right? They're complex, emotional, economic actors, members of families, members of societies with dreams and ambitions that may include the United States and that may not. We need to understand and make more complex reasoning and conversations. We need to embrace everyone. When we look at the Sea of Flags, this beautiful installation that reminds us of the immigrants among us, we also have to remember each flag represents a unique, complicated story, and each flag is essential, no matter the complication of that story. We all belong. We are radically, compassionately equal to one another, and we need to lift up each other and support each other to the fullest extent of what equality can look like. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kim Pereira. I'm a recently retired faculty in the School of Theatre and Dance, and thank you, Archana and Maura, for dragging me out of my lockdown at home. When we gather among allies, we praise the contributions of immigrants and the ways they have shaped the nation. From our very beginnings, humans have migrated in search of better and more adventurous pastures. This is built into our human DNA and is actually a wonderful thing, for it makes us explorers. Whether we travel as tourists or immigrants, only two questions really matter. How will we be received, and how will we treat those places and people? Within those questions is a complex matrix of political rabbit holes and cultural determinations, many of which are embedded in national discussions today. What we don't talk about enough, however, are the origins of modern immigration and how similar they are to the origins of refugee movements, the roots of which lie in several centuries of imperialism and colonial invasions. There are only a handful of European nations that did not have colonies across Africa, Asia, or South and Central America. They went ostensibly to trade, but then to plunder and steal natural resources, and stayed to establish their cultures and, more important, their religion. If you look at pictures of colonial landings, you will inevitably see European flags held by soldiers and Christian crosses raised by priests. Yes, they built roads and railways, but those were originally for soldiers and goods. Imperialism left so-called third world civilizations denuded of natural resources. Its reckless mismanagement of industrial and manufacturing practices harmed the environment and exacerbated existing communal and religious divisions, forcing swaths of people into poverty in favor of a wealthy native elite that reflected Western capitalism's division of assets. Post-colonial practices continued draining former colonies through selective immigration policies that welcomed only the best and brightest, worsening the plight of the nations and cultures left behind. It was only a matter of time before those populations, bereft of human and natural assets and inevitably embroiled in civil wars between religious and cultural factions, sought relief and refuge in migrating to the homes of their former masters. It is more than poetic justice to suggest that they're only reclaiming what was stolen. But particularly in the last few years, European and American societies blamed immigrants and refugees for all their problems, and unable to comprehend the poetic and practical irony of this reversal of human movement patterns, began shutting their doors. As we engage in this great debate on immigrants and refugees, let us remind ourselves that the practices of past decades continue today, in appropriating lands, attempting regime change, and installing dictators. We left those hapless people nowhere to go but here. Here is the obvious place they may have left to claim their inalienable right, the pursuit of happiness. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming, and that concludes the formal part of the program.
Thank you so much. Really honored. Thank you.
I'm cold. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I got to ask the translator.
Yes.
Thank you.
Each one of the speeches just feel blended together. Thank you.
It's not always.
Yeah. Would it be recorded?
Yeah, it's live. Well, let's make sure. Yeah. It's challenging, but it's also
Recorded. Yes. Fantastic.
visually.
Yeah.